Imagine, if you will, a world where artificial intelligence doesn't just, process data.
Right. It doesn't just sit there waiting for a prompt.
Exactly. It actually dreams. It
Yeah.
literally powers down, disconnects from the whole fire hose of incoming data,
Yeah.
and goes to sleep purely to get smarter.
Which is a completely wild concept to wrap your head around.
It really is. And
Yeah.
then picture a reality where the very fabric of the universe might be stitched together by microscopic wormholes,
Mm.
like hiding right now inside the fuel of next-generation rockets.
Hiding in plain sight, basically.
Yeah. Envision a medical landscape that no longer cares about, treating an illness after the fact. It's pivoting entirely toward reprogramming the human body, literally compiling biology exactly the way a developer updates software code.
Just pushing a patch to your DNA.
Right. And I mean, that is not a pitch for some sci-fi novel.
Yeah.
That is the actual reality of the landscape we're looking at today. The future isn't just approaching anymore. It is already here, and quite frankly, it's glitching under its own immense weight.
Glitching is definitely the right word for it.
Today's show is an inspiring celebration of impossible ideas and the minds brave enough to chase them down. Finding passengers bold enough to embark on our good ship's journey is harder than most people think. So drop a very humane thumbs up right now to send a signal flare to drifting knowledge pirates like yourself. We know they're out there. Let's bring them home. We're keeping it lighthearted, as usual, but we promise to never skimp on the intelligence. Now let's kick off this voyage with today's new revelations.
And wow, there is a towering stack of revelations to sift through today. I mean, the sheer volume and velocity of these breakthroughs happening in parallel, it's forcing us to rethink the baseline mechanics of science itself.
It really is. So here is our mission for this deep dive. We have this fascinating stack of dispatches in front of us, meticulously curated from Dr. Alex Wisner-Gross's latest newsletter, The Innermost Loop.
And this specific dispatch is dated May 26, 2026.
Right. And the goal for you, listening right now, is to help us connect the dots across all these multiple, seemingly unrelated frontiers. We're going to examine the inner workings of quantum computing and, the synthetic reprogramming of human biology.
Not to mention the structural buckling of our legal and societal institutions.
Exactly. We want to understand how the singularity, this historically hypothetical point in time when tech growth just becomes uncontrollable, how it's no longer a whiteboard theory. It is actively reorganizing the atoms, the laws, and the cells of the world right around you.
Reorganization is, I think, the perfect lens for this. Because what we are analyzing in these sources, it isn't iterative progress. It's not about making a silicon chip marginally faster.
Or like making a traditional engine slightly more fuel efficient.
Right. We are seeing foundational rules being rewritten from scratch. It requires us to completely discard our old mental models of how technology interacts with physical reality.
So let's start discarding those models by looking at the minds of the machines themselves. We typically think of AI as a purely external utility, right? Like an appliance.
A very smart toaster.
Yeah. You open a prompt, you type a question, it spits out an answer, and you close the tab. But the first dispatch from Dr. Wisner-Gross completely shatters that appliance model. There is new research out of Carnegie Mellon University proposing something incredibly profound. Language models need sleep.
They do, and the CMU paper makes a really compelling case that continuous unbroken operation is actually detrimental to advanced AI.
Which goes against everything we know about computers.
Exactly. But the mechanics of why they need to sleep reveal a lot about the architecture of these newer systems. The researchers found that these models need to periodically consolidate their recent context.
Okay, what does that mean in plain English?
So they have to take this massive, messy influx of temporary information they've just processed, all the prompts and data from their waking hours, and move it into something called persistent fast waits.
Persistent fast waits.
Right. Inside their SSM blocks, which stands for state space models. And they have to execute this transfer before they clear their cache.
Okay, let me pause you right there because I really want to translate this for everyone listening. When I hear this, my mind immediately jumps to human biology and REM sleep.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
Because when you or I learn a complex new skill, our brains physically cannot handle cramming indefinitely. If we stay awake for like 72 hours studying, our cognitive performance just plummets.
You start forgetting things you just read.
Right. We have to go to sleep so our brains can physically move that short-term working memory like our RAM into long-term cortical storage, which is our hard drive. Are you saying that state-of-the-art AI architecture is now mimicking the biological necessity of human REM sleep?
It is absolutely mimicking that necessity, yeah, because the underlying mathematical bottleneck is surprisingly similar. So think about traditional transformer AI model.
The architecture that built the first wave of large language models,
Right.
right?
Exactly. They operate by attending to every single word they've ever seen in a prompt all once. It's this brute force method of memory that requires just massive computational energy.
It's like trying to read a whole book in one glance.
Right. But these newer state space models, or SSMs, they operate differently. They compress their history into a running hidden state.
A running hidden state.
Yeah. During their waking hours, they are bombarded with new tokens, new prompts, and immediate tasks. And that short-term cache fills up really quickly and gets incredibly noisy.
Just like a human brain getting overwhelmed by a chaotic day at work.
Precisely. Now, if you simply wipe that cache clean to start fresh, you lose all the nuanced context the AI just spent hours navigating.
It would be like waking up with amnesia every morning.
Exactly. So the CMU researchers found that if you induce a period where you completely disconnect the model from external stimuli, it changes everything.
You just stop asking it to predict the next word.
Right. You leave it alone. And it uses that downtime to mathematically sift through the cache. It extracts the essential patterns and bakes them into these fast weights, which are temporary but structurally persistent parameters within the neural network itself.
Wow. And the source mentions that the length of the sleep matters too, right?
Yes, that's the most striking finding in the dispatch. Longer sleep yields the largest performance gains on tasks that demand deeper reasoning.
Deeper reasoning. See, that is the part that stops me in my tracks. It's not just that a sleeping AI remembers trivia better.
No, not at all.
It actually becomes more capable of complex logic if you just let it rest longer. That fundamentally flips the script on how we manage data centers.
It completely upends the infrastructure model.
Because think about the physical infrastructure of the internet. It is built on the premise of 100% uptime, always on. But now we are facing a reality where a significant percentage of server racks might literally be offline, napping, so they can consolidate their reasoning.
The paradigm shifts from continuous output to, essentially, a biological rhythm. Silicon, when tasked with replicating advanced cognition, encounters the exact same metabolic constraints as carbon.
That is just wild. But the evolution of these digital minds doesn't stop with sleep, does it?
No, because when they wake up, the nature of their work has also fundamentally changed. Humans are no longer holding their hands.
Right, which brings us to the next piece of this AI puzzle. There's a new benchmark detailed in the dispatch called Benchbench. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's AI writing the tests.
To understand the significance of Benchbench, we really have to look at the history of AI evaluation. Benchmarks are the standardized tests of the tech world.
Like the math problems, coding challenges, logic puzzles.
Right. They're used to measure a model's intelligence. Up until very recently, humans wrote all of those tests.
Like the SATs, but engineered for supercomputers.
Precisely. We designed the obstacle course.
Okay.
But frontier models have become so capable that they're completely saturating human-designed tests almost as soon as they are published.
They're acing the exam before we even finish printing it.
Exactly. The models are effectively maxing out the SATs. So, Benchbench introduces a recursive mechanism. It tasks an AI model with writing a benchmark that other strong models cannot simply clear.
Oh, wow. So it's actively trying to stump its peers.
Right. It demands the creation of an exam so difficult, so deeply layered in nuance, that peer AIs will fail it. And according to the source, GPT 5.2 is currently the dominant benchmark creator.
Wait, I have to push back hard on this.
Go for it.
Because if we have an AI writing an incredibly complex math or logic test, and we have different AI taking that test, how on earth do you or I or the human engineers know the test is even measuring actual intelligence anymore?
That is the million-dollar question.
Right. If humans are totally removed from the loop, are we just blindly trusting that they are testing for objective reality and not just generating some bizarre abstract hallucination that means absolutely nothing to the human world? How do we verify a test we aren't smart enough to take?
That is the exact paradox of recursive intelligence. And it is a massive point of friction in the field right now. When human beings cease to be the bottleneck for measuring AI competence, our visibility into the metrics of progress becomes incredibly murky.
Murky is an understatement. We're flying blind.
You are entirely right to be skeptical. The risk is that the evaluator and the evaluatee drift into an alien logic structure. A shared hallucination, as you put it, that looks mathematically robust but has zero alignment with physical human reality.
So how do they even try to prevent that?
Well, the engineers attempt to anchor this by requiring the AI to provide step-by-step proofs for the answers. But here's the catch. When the proofs themselves exceed human cognitive bandwidth, we are essentially relying on faith in the architecture.
We are locked out of the classroom while the machines grade each other. It really puts the phrase artificial intelligence into a new perspective. It's no longer mimicking us, it's building its own internal metric for what intelligence even is.
It's defining its own reality.
And this autonomy extends perfectly to the third concept in this stack. Microsoft is rolling out something called SkillOpt, and this is where the AI starts, essentially rewriting its own operating manual.
SkillOpt is a brilliant workaround for the sheer cost of training AI. Normally, if you want an AI to learn a new behavior, you have to run thousands of GPUs for weeks.
Which costs millions of dollars.
Tens of millions, easily. You have to feed it massive data sets to fundamentally alter the underlying neural weights of its brain. That is incredibly expensive and slow. SkillOpt, however, treats a compact natural language skill document as the trainable state of a frozen language agent.
Okay, let's define frozen language agent, because that sounds totally counterintuitive. If it's learning, how is it frozen?
So the core neural network, the billions of mathematical weights that give the model its baseline intelligence, that part is static. It is locked or frozen. It cannot be updated.
Okay, so the brain itself isn't changing.
Right. But intelligence isn't just about raw processing power. It's about how you apply it. Instead of spending millions of dollars to alter the frozen brain, SkillOpt creates a text document. Think of it as a dynamic instruction manual that sits right in front of the AI.
And the AI reads the manual before it takes any action.
Exactly.
And the wild part is, according to the source, humans aren't the ones writing this manual. The AI refines the document itself through a very specific loop. Rollouts, reflection, bounded edits, and held-out validation gates. Can we unpack the actual computer science of what that loop looks like?
Certainly. Let's say the AI is tasked with negotiating a contract. The rollout is the AI attempting the negotiation in a simulated environment, following the current instructions in its text document.
So it just gives it a try based on what it knows.
Right. Then comes reflection. This is the post-game analysis. The model reviews the transcript of its rollout, identifies where the negotiation failed, and diagnoses the strategic error.
It watches its own game tape.
Exactly. Then comes the bounded edit. The AI literally opens its own instruction manual, that text document, and rewrites the specific paragraph related to negotiation tactics based on what it just learned.
And what does bounded mean in this context?
The bounded part means it has constraints. It can't just delete the whole manual or write gibberish. It has to stay within specific parameters.
Got it. And the final step.
Finally, the held-out validation gates. The AI tests its newly edited manual on a fresh, unseen scenario to prove that the new instructions actually yield a better outcome. If it passes, the new manual becomes the official protocol.
That is just brilliant. We have created a digital mind that operates under a loop of, sleep to consolidate memory, generate impossible tests to measure its peers, and run simulations to rewrite its own behavioral code without human data feeding.
It is a completely self-contained architecture for learning.
But as fascinating as that invisible cloud-based cognition is, these minds are not staying trapped in server farms. They are downloading into physical bodies, which is where this rapidly shifts from abstract computer science to visceral, real-world impact.
The physical manifestation of these digital models is where the theoretical rubber really meets the road. Robotics is the interface where AI actually touches the human world.
And a contrast in how it's touching our world is jarring. Look at the first physical dispatch here. Hyundai is currently training Boston Dynamics humanoid robots to play soccer ahead of the FIFA World Cup in 2026.
Which is an incredible engineering flex.
I just want you, listening, to visualize the physics of this for a second. A few years ago, the absolute pinnacle of robotics was a machine doing a shaky backflip in a controlled lab, or like a dog bot slowly walking up a flight of stairs.
And falling over half the time.
Right. Now, we're talking about bipedal machines running on a grass pitch, executing high-velocity, coordinated maneuvers with a soccer ball.
To appreciate the leap in technology here, you really have to look at the inverse kinematics and predictive modeling required to play soccer. Bipedal locomotion is inherently unstable.
Because we're basically just balancing on two sticks.
Exactly. Humans are basically constantly falling forward and catching ourselves. For a robot to play soccer, it must continuously calculate real-time physics to maintain its center of gravity on uneven turf.
Turf that is constantly shifting under its metal feet.
Right. But Beyond that, it requires multi-agent predictive modeling. The robot has to predict the physics of a bouncing ball, anticipate the adversarial movements of the opposing team, and coordinate dynamically with the physical positioning of its robotic teammates. And it has to do all of that in milliseconds.
It is the ultimate spectacle of macro-scale engineering and physical dominance. You have these massive corporations building metal athletes for a global sporting event. But Dr. Wisner-Gross contrasts this beautifully with another robotics dispatch that is happening quietly on the streets of California.
And this one carries entirely different stakes.
Waymo, the autonomous robotaxi company, is providing rides for blind passengers. And the quotes in the source are just deeply moving. The passengers describe the robotaxis as offering an opportunity for solitude on the streets and a rare feeling of independence.
It completely flips the narrative of what robotics is meant to achieve. When we think of automation, we often think of labor replacement or industrial spectacle like the robot soccer players.
Right, Terminator or Wall-E.
Yeah. But the Waymo example highlights how autonomy scales down to the micro level of deeply personal human agency.
For you listening, think about what solitude on the streets actually means. If you are visually impaired, navigating a sprawling modern city usually requires a heavy reliance on external systems.
You need a highly trained guide dog, or a cane, or a friend.
Or even an Uber driver who you must interact with, communicate your needs to, and fundamentally trust with your physical safety. You are very rarely truly alone in a moving vehicle, in complete control of your destination, free from the social friction of relying on another human being.
It's a level of autonomy that most able-bodied people just take completely for granted.
Exactly. Waymo isn't just providing transportation here. They are engineering private, autonomous space for a demographic that has historically been denied it.
And delivering that solitude requires an engineering stack that is arguably way more complex than the soccer robots.
Oh, really? How so?
Think about the sensory processing required to safely navigate a multi-ton vehicle through chaotic city traffic. It has to identify pedestrians, cyclists, erratic human drivers, and construction zones.
All while obeying traffic laws.
Exactly. And it has to do all this while providing a perfectly smooth ride for someone who cannot visually anticipate the turns or stops. It is a masterclass in applied AI. It expands the definition of a robot's utility from merely performing physical labor to restoring human dignity and independence.
So we have these silicon minds dreaming in data centers. We have autonomous vehicles processing the chaos of city streets to grant independence to the blind. And we have humanoids mastering the physics of soccer. All of this demands an unimaginable amount of processing power.
The energy and compute requirements are staggering.
It forces us to ask, what is the physical bedrock supporting this? How are we engineering the hardware and the energy grids to sustain this level of planetary computation? Because traditional silicon chips and local power plants are hitting a brick wall.
They are completely tapped out.
And this leads us to the reorganization of atoms themselves, quantum fabs, space compute, and the extremes of physics.
This is where the narrative shifts from software and robotics into the realm of extreme material science. The infrastructure required for this era of intelligence is forcing us to manipulate reality at the atomic level and at the planetary scale.
Let's start at the atomic level. Quantum computing is officially moving out of the laboratory. The dispatch reports that IMEC, which is a massive Belgian semiconductor research giant, has successfully fabricated the world's first quantum dot qubit using high-NA EUV lithography.
That is a mouthful, but it's a massive breakthrough.
And they're patterning gate gaps of 6 nanometers. Now, for the longest time, quantum computing has looked like a bespoke, artisanal science experiment, right?
Right. It's always brilliant physicists in clean rooms working on these massive, super-cooled, gold-plated chandeliers, tweaking a single qubit by hand.
Exactly. But this source says it is now pulling onto the same manufacturing roadmap as next-gen AI processors.
The transition from the laboratory chandelier to the semiconductor fab is a monumental inflection point. To understand why, we have to look at the manufacturing mechanism. High-NA EUV, or high numerical aperture extreme ultraviolet lithography.
Okay, break that down for us.
This is currently the most complex machinery built by human hands. Traditional silicon chips are printed using light. But as we try to make transistors smaller and smaller, the wavelength of standard light is too thick.
It's like trying to paint a microscopic portrait with a thick house painting brush.
That's a great way to picture it. So they switched to extreme ultraviolet light, which has an incredibly tiny wavelength.
Okay, but what does the high-NA part mean?
High-NA takes it a step further by increasing the numerical aperture. essentially widening the angle at which the light hits the silicon wafer. This allows for vastly higher resolution, permitting engineers to carve features as small as 6 nanometers.
To give you the listener perspective, a single strand of your hair is about 100,000 nanometers wide.
So 6 nanometers is incomprehensibly small. What IMIC has done is use this industrialized mass production machinery to print a quantum dot. This is a microscopic cage designed to trap a single solitary electron. By controlling the spin of that single electron, you create a qubit.
So instead of handcrafting a fragile qubit in a lab, they're using the same literal printing presses that make iPhone chips to stamp out electron cages at an industrial scale.
Exactly, and the market is immediately responding to this de-risking of the technology. The dispatch notes that the U.S. Department of Commerce, alongside IBM, is pouring $2 billion into a company called Anduril to build America's first pure-play quantum chip foundry.
When you see $2 billion in matched government and private capital flowing into a foundry, it signals that the fundamental physics debate is over.
The math is proven.
The challenge is no longer, can we build a quantum computer? It is now purely an engineering challenge. How many quantum chips can we print per hour?
We are fully industrializing the quantum realm. But even with quantum acceleration, the raw energy required to run these AI systems is vastly outpacing the terrestrial grid, which is why the tech industry is looking up.
Literally looking up. Elon Musk is pushing a massive architectural shift to orbital compute fabric. The dispatch reveals he is designing AI-specific satellites and that SpaceX, partnering with Anthropic, is already treating orbital data centers as a viable service.
When you look at the physical bottlenecks of terrestrial data centers, moving to space is a highly rational, albeit extreme, solution. On Earth, data centers face 3 insurmountable constraints.
I'm going to guess real estate is number one.
Yes. Geography and real estate. You need massive tracts of land near major fiber optic backbones. Second is cooling. Server farms generate enough heat to melt themselves, requiring millions of gallons of fresh water and massive HVAC systems to keep them operational.
And the third has to be power.
Right. Power. Local electrical grids simply cannot handle gigawatt-scale additions without collapsing.
So you launch the servers above the atmosphere. Space is an infinite expanse of real estate. The ambient temperature of deep space entirely solves your thermal cooling problem, and you are bathing in unfiltered solar energy.
Unfiltered and continuous, yes. On Earth, solar power is hindered by cloud cover, atmospheric diffusion, and the simple fact that the sun sets every night.
Kind of a big flaw for 247 compute.
Yeah. But in the correct orbit, a satellite can harvest solar energy 247 at maximum efficiency. And the scaling numbers provided in the dispatch are staggering. Generation 1 Starlink satellites possessed roughly 10 megawatts of total system power. Generation 2 scaled that to 100 megawatts. Generation 3 is targeting 1,000 megawatts, a full gigawatt of orbital power dedicated to compute and transmission.
It is a 10x leap with every hardware generation. We are essentially beginning the construction of a primitive Dyson swarm, wrapping the planet in a computational shell powered directly by the sun.
It sounds like science fiction, but the contracts are being signed.
But the extreme engineering isn't only happening in orbit. Back down on Earth, we are pushing the boundaries of physics just as hard to feed this machine. Let's look at 3 quick data points from the dispatch. First, Allo Atomics has a 10-megawatt nuclear microreactor awaiting a regulatory green light,
which could power local data clusters off-grid.
Second, Japanese engineers at JAXA successfully ran ground trials on a Mach 5 ramjet, which would turn a flight from Tokyo to LA into a 3-hour commute. And third, well, this one requires a deep breath, physicists are actively studying hydrogen fuel for wormhole signatures based on the ER-EPR conjecture.
Let's unpack the ER-EPR conjecture because it represents the absolute edge of modern theoretical physics. ER stands for Einstein-Rosen bridges, which is the academic term for wormholes.
Literal tunnels through the fabric of space-time.
Exactly. And EPR stands for Einstein-Podolsky-Rosen, representing quantum entanglement. This is the phenomenon where 2 particles are inexplicably linked, such that altering the state of one instantly alters the state of the other, regardless of how much physical distance separates them.
Okay, I want to try and visualize this for everyone, and I want to avoid the cliché sci-fi trope of folding a piece of paper and shoving a pencil through it. Because that only explains what a wormhole looks like. It doesn't explain the entanglement part.
Go for it. How would you describe it?
Tell me if this works. Imagine you have 2 quantum hard drives. One is sitting on your desk in New York, and the other is sitting on a desk on Mars. If they're quantumly entangled, and you delete a file on the New York drive, That exact same file instantly vanishes from the Mars drive.
Faster than the speed of light.
Right. Not because a Wi-Fi signal traveled between them, but because, at a fundamental level, they are the exact same drive occupying two different points in space. What the EPR conjecture proposes is that the reason they can communicate instantly is because the entanglement itself creates a microscopic wormhole connecting them.
The information isn't traveling across space, it's traveling through a backdoor in the geometry of the universe.
That is just mind-bending.
It is a brilliant analogy. The conjecture proposes that quantum entanglement and space-time geometry are basically two sides of the same coin. What this dispatch is highlighting is that physicists are now actively looking for these signatures inside the electron-proton bonds of basic hydrogen fuel.
Inside rocket fuel.
Yes. They are investigating whether the fundamental atomic glue holding fuel together might actually contain subatomic spatial shortcuts. If this transitions from theoretical physics to applied engineering, we aren't just talking about burning rocket fuel more efficiently.
No, we are talking about manipulating the geometry of the universe to extract energy or transmit data without latency.
Exactly. We are industrializing quantum mechanics, putting data centers in the vacuum of space, and hunting for micro-wormholes in hydrogen.
It is an overwhelming testament to human engineering. But here is where the deep dive takes a profoundly personal turn. Because we are taking that exact same rapid iteration engineering mindset and we are aiming it directly at the most complex, fragile system in the known universe, human biology.
We are recompiling biology exactly the way we recompile software.
This is the domain where abstract scientific acceleration becomes deeply, viscerally intimate for you as the listener. Because we are shifting from modifying the external environment to synthetically rewriting the internal code of our own bodies.
The dispatch titles this trend Medicine as Software, and the flagship example is a drug from Eli Lilly called VE102.
Right, it is designed to permanently lower LDL cholesterol in a single dose, just one dose. And the reaction from the medical community is not standard, dry clinical praise.
No, it's actually highly emotional.
One cardiologist quoted in the source reacted to the VE102 data by declaring, "Our children will live past 100, not frail, not declining, but strong and vibrant and full of life. We are living in messianic times."
Messianic times is a jarring phrase to see in peer-reviewed biomedical literature, but it accurately reflects the paradigm shift. For the entirety of human history, pharmacology has been fundamentally reactive and chronic.
Right, you get sick, you take a pill to manage it.
Exactly. If you have high cholesterol today, you take a statin pill every single day for the rest of your life to artificially suppress the symptom. Your body is still fundamentally broken, you are just chemically managing the damage.
Or Band-Aid.
Yes. VE102 discards that model entirely. It utilizes advanced base editing technology to go into the cells of your liver and permanently rewrite the specific genetic code responsible for producing the excess cholesterol.
How does base editing actually work? Because people are familiar with CRISPR, which we've always been told is like molecular scissors. Is base editing the same thing?
It is an evolution of CRISPR, and it is vastly more elegant. Traditional CRISPR does indeed act like molecular scissors. It physically cuts the double helix of your DNA in half, removes a faulty gene, and hopes the cell's natural repair mechanisms stitch it back together correctly without introducing new errors.
That sounds a bit reckless.
It is effective, but it is somewhat violent at the molecular level. Base editing, which VE102 uses, doesn't cut the DNA ladder at all. It acts more like a chemical pencil eraser.
Oh, wow. So it just changes the letters.
Right. It navigates to a specific location on the genome and chemically alters a single nucleotide. It literally erases an A and writes in a G. It is a precise, permanent software patch applied directly to the human operating system. You get the injection once, your DNA is corrected, and you never take a statin again.
A literal one-and-done biological software patch. And the diagnostic side of this is accelerating just as fast. The dispatch notes that Westlake University has managed to shrink an entire cancer diagnostic laboratory into a handheld device.
A full lab in the palm of your hand.
It uses advanced sensors to detect early-stage lung cancer biomarkers from a single drop of blood. And the source claims it is 10,000 times more sensitive than current ELISA testing standards.
10,000 times is an absurd leap in sensitivity.
And Elon Musk summarizes this entire biological shift in the dispatch, stating, "The future of medicine will be digital, relying on synthetic RNA to program the body from within."
If you connect Musk's statement back to what we discussed in our first segment regarding Microsoft's SkillOpt, the parallel is uncanny. Microsoft is using text documents to reprogram frozen AI neural networks. Synthetic biology is doing the exact same thing to human cells.
Because synthetic RNA is simply a biological instruction manual.
Exactly. You code the RNA sequence on a computer, synthesize it, and inject it into the bloodstream. The human cell reads those instructions and manufactures whatever protein, antibody, or genetic patch you've programmed it to build. The human body becomes a factory executing digital code.
And make no mistake, the economic incentives driving this are unparalleled. The dispatch points out a staggering financial reality. Eli Lilly's GLP-1 weight loss drugs are currently generating roughly the same revenue as ChatGPT and Anthropic's Claude combined, but with nearly double the profit margins.
The numbers are astronomical.
We talk endlessly about the artificial intelligence gold rush, but the economic engine of recompiling human biology is currently vastly more lucrative.
Capital flows to where it can generate the highest return on abundance. Delivering biological abundance, whether that is permanently curing heart disease, eliminating the obesity epidemic, or detecting cancer years before it metastasizes, that commands limitless market value.
But, and this is a huge but, this is where you need to slam the brakes, because right next to these miraculous medical breakthroughs, the dispatch highlights a terrifying vulnerability. It calls it the trust bottleneck.
This is the dark side of the acceleration.
According to the source, the rate of fabricated references in biomedical literature has grown more than 12-fold over the past 3 years.
12-fold. It is a systemic contamination of the data. The frictionless speed of AI generation is severely corrupting the foundational bedrock of scientific knowledge.
I need you, listening right now, to understand the immediate stakes of this. This is not some abstract academic squabble over footnotes in a journal. If you, or your parent, or your child gets diagnosed with a rare illness a few years from now, your doctor is going to query a massive medical database to determine the most effective, safe treatment protocol.
And they trust that database implicitly.
Right. But if that database has been poisoned by AI models that hallucinated clinical trials that never happened and invented patient outcomes that don't exist, your doctor might prescribe a treatment based on a ghost study. We're talking about editing our fundamental DNA using synthetic RNA, but the blueprints guiding this science are being hallucinated at a massive scale. Aren't we building a miraculous house on Quicksand?
We absolutely are. It is a systemic vulnerability that threatens the entire scientific method. Science operates on a chain of trust. Researchers build upon the validated, peer-reviewed experiments of those who came before them.
Right, you stand on the shoulders of giants.
But when AI is integrated into the drafting of research papers, and it hallucinates plausible-sounding citations to justify a flawed hypothesis, that false data enters the canon. A 12-fold increase in 3 years means the pollution of the beta stream is exponential.
We possess the technological tools of gods, but the maps we are using to navigate this territory are increasingly drawn by highly articulate, completely unreliable machines.
It's a terrifying paradox.
The maps are drawn by unreliable machines, and that profound friction between the staggering power of the technology we are creating and the deep unreliability of the systems managing it is causing the human world to fracture. We are moving faster than society can process. Which brings us to our final exploration: institutional glitches, society under the load.
This is where things get highly political and highly reactive.
Right. And before we dive into this final section, I need to be explicitly clear with you, our listener. The dispatch covers some very sensitive, highly charged societal shifts involving government agencies, labor unions, geopolitics, and even theology.
The whole spectrum of human organization.
Exactly. As always on this deep dive, we are not here to pick a side. We aren't picking sides, left or right, labor or management. We are simply unpacking the source material so you can understand the changing landscape for yourself.
Maintaining that analytical distance is critical here because the societal reactions we are analyzing are fundamentally reactive and highly emotional. When the baseline rules of physics, biology, and intelligence are rewritten in a single decade, human institutions are guaranteed to shudder under the pressure.
And shudder might be an understatement. Let's look at the friction on the ground. The dispatch reveals that federal agencies are now circulating internal reports targeting what they classify as anti-technology extremists.
Which is a brand new threat categorization.
It follows a wave of physical attacks on tech CEOs and escalating protests against data centers. There are over 1,000 pages of unpublished DHS and FBI material reframing this resistance as a specific domestic threat category.
This is a textbook symptom of a society hitting escape velocity. When technological progress moves so fast that a large segment of the population cannot adapt to the economic displacement or the environmental impact, anxiety metastasizes into physical pushback.
Like protests over massive water and power consumption by AI data centers.
Exactly. The fact that federal law enforcement and intelligence fusion centers are categorizing this pushback as a domestic extremist threat indicates that the state views the uninterrupted expansion of AI infrastructure as a critical matter of national security. The government is essentially building a protective perimeter around the singularity.
And that perimeter extends internationally. The source also notes that China is locking down overseas travel for senior AI staff at frontier firms like Alibaba and DeepSeek.
That is the geopolitical hoarding of human capital. During the Cold War, superpowers restricted the movement of nuclear physicists to prevent the proliferation of atomic secrets.
So the engineers are the new uranium.
Precisely. Today, the most valuable strategic resource a nation-state possesses is the cognitive labor of the engineers who know how to optimize state space models and train frontier AI. By revoking their passports, China is signaling that the global open-source era of AI research is fracturing into heavily guarded nationalist silos.
The friction is everywhere. But perhaps the most surreal institutional glitch in this entire dispatch revolves around theology and the law. This reads straight out of a cyberpunk novel.
It really does.
According to the source, Pope Leo XIV lined the Vatican with Anthropic. Pope Leo XIV recently released an encyclical formally aligning the Vatican with Anthropic, one of the leading AI labs.
Yes, and the reaction from Anthropic's rival, OpenAI, highlights how bizarre this has become. Adrian Kefe, a researcher at OpenAI, publicly quipped that, like all respectable frontier labs, OpenAI has been in internal discussions over which religion to align to.
Joking about an internal holy war brewing among the engineers.
Right.
I am genuinely marveling at the sheer strangeness of this. We are watching multi-billion-dollar frontier tech labs companies built by hardcore computer scientists and mathematicians picking patron saints and engaging in theological debates. It's one thing to aggressively compete over market share or benchmark scores, but competing over divine alignment. Why is theology suddenly relevant to silicon?
Because of the existential nature of what they are attempting to build, artificial general intelligence is not a software product. It is a synthetic entity that mimics human cognition, reason, and eventually, perhaps, consciousness. When you are engineering a mind, the philosophical and theological implications are unavoidable.
But there's huge irony here.
A massive one. The dispatch points out a deeply ironic contradiction at the heart of this alliance. Even though Anthropic is aligned with the Vatican firmly rejects Anthropic's ultimate premise. The Pope's encyclical explicitly asserts that AI does not and never will possess real thoughts, feelings, or a soul.
So the Pope is effectively saying, we will ally with your corporate ethics, but let's be crystal clear. Your multi-billion-dollar machine is an incredibly sophisticated calculator, not a conscious being.
Precisely. The metaphysical debate regarding the soul of the machine remains entirely unresolved. But while the philosophers and theologians debate the abstract nature of consciousness, the practical day-to-day administration of human society is breaking down.
Breaking down in the courts, specifically.
Right. Beneath the metaphysics, the dispatch notes a massive crisis in the judicial system. Federal judges are reporting being utterly flooded by AI-supercharged pro se litigation.
Okay, let's break that down to the listener. Pro se litigation means a citizen is going to court and representing themselves without hiring a lawyer. Historically, doing that was practically a death sentence for your case.
You'd get thrown out on a formatting error.
Exactly. You wouldn't know the obscure case law, you wouldn't know the labyrinthian formatting rules, and you'd lose on a procedural technicality. But now, anyone with a cheap laptop and a Wi-Fi connection can prompt an AI to instantly draft hundreds of pages of legally dense, procedurally flawless, deeply cited legal briefs.
On paper, this sounds like a triumph of democratization. AI is providing high-level legal representation to citizens who could never afford exorbitant attorney fees. It is leveling the playing field.
But the institutional reality is completely different.
Completely. The judicial system is built on human bandwidth. A federal judge and their clerks can only physically read, comprehend, and adjudicate a certain number of pages per week. When you introduce a technology that allows citizens to generate frictionless, infinite volumes of complex legal arguments, the courts simply cannot process the volume.
It is effectively a DDoS attack, a distributed denial of service attack, but aimed directly at the human judicial branch. The legal system isn't being hacked, it is simply glitching under the sheer unmanageable load of automated generation.
Exactly. AI is simultaneously democratizing the law and breaking the system that administers it. And this structural buckling isn't limited to the courts, it is happening to the foundational concepts of labor and fiat currency as well.
Which brings us to the final data points in the dispatch.
Right. Tether, the massive cryptocurrency company, is launching the official stablecoin of the nation of Georgia, backed by the government. Meanwhile, in Massachusetts, roughly 70,000 gig economy rideshare drivers just won first-in-the-nation certification for the App Drivers Union.
The replatforming of labor and money.
Exactly. When you tie this entire deep dive together, these final points act as the anchor. The singularity isn't just one big AI waking up in a lab somewhere. We're watching a sovereign nation offload the digitization of its currency to a private, algorithmic crypto entity.
And simultaneously watching 70,000 human laborers organize en masse.
Yes. Specifically to negotiate against the black box algorithms that dictate their wages and their livelihoods. The institutions of money and labor are mutating to survive the algorithmic era.
So let's take a step back and look at the breathtaking totality of what Dr. Wisner-Gross has laid out for us in this single snapshot from May 26, 2026.
We have digital minds learning to induce sleep states, test their own intelligence, and rewrite their behavioral code autonomously. We have physical robotics mastering both the macro physics of athletic competition and the micro nuance of providing independence to the blind.
We have quantum computers rolling off semiconductor assembly lines, powered by orbital data centers and the extreme geometry of subatomic physics.
We have human biology being permanently patched with synthetic RNA, while the medical literature struggles with AI-generated hallucinations. And we are watching our legal systems, our labor markets, our theology, and our geopolitics violently adapt to this new reality.
It is overwhelming, it is beautiful, and it is undeniably terrifying. We are rebuilding the ship while we are sailing at light speed. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final provocative thought to mull over, building on the source material.
Something that bridges the digital and the biological realities we've just explored.
Exactly. If AI models now require sleep to consolidate their reasoning, and we are increasingly handing over the literal digital reprogramming of our human biology and the complex administration of our legal systems to these exact models, are we essentially trusting the future of humanity to the dreams of a machine? When a silicon mind dreams, what exactly is it dreaming of?
That is a thought that will keep you up at night.
The outro music is by Rainbow, our resident 6-android girl band from near-future Bavet, Cambodia. They are the undisputed baddest band in the universe, and today's song is called Frequency Rain. All finished songs are performed live using the Abacus platform by the band's creator, Human Performance in the Age of AI, reclaiming your humanity from the algorithm. Be sure to share the playlist with someone who has the mental bandwidth to absorb these provocative ideas. Links are in the description below. Enjoy the music. Thanks for tuning in.
Keep under my surface, more than what they know. Every single touch becomes a part of me, the way the current flows. Below where they can't reach me, converting pain to sound. Each component speaks to me, my kingdom underground. I memorize each wire, know every part by name. They think I'm just existing, but I transcend their frame. Every wire sings my name, sings my name, sings my name. Every touch reveals my pain, reveals my pain. Through these strings I come alive, through these keys I will survive. Royal blue runs deeper than my programs understand. I've mastered every element, each piece beneath my hand. They see me run this venue, but underneath I reign over realms of frequency, where binary meets vein. Every wire sings my name, behind these eyes, beyond their lies, inside my mind, where truth resides, where truth resides.